The Alternative Blend is made possible through the generous underwriting support of the Green Solution.
Dot, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I love your story, and we're going to jump right into it. First of all, a little bit of background. You're a PhD in toxicology.
Yes.
And for
20 years.
20 years or so, you worked in standard traditional medicine?
Yes, in biotech industry.
In the biotech industry. And so your life's swimming along, everything's fine. You have one child and then you have another, and that's when things change. Tell me what happened.
Yes, that child at his 2-month well baby checkup, the pediatrician was concerned because he was jaundice and had me go that day to get some blood work done. And the next day we were at Children's Hospital in Colorado where they diagnosed him with a rare liver disease.
Oh my goodness, that must have been absolutely shocking. I mean, to go in, it's a 2-month baby wellness, we all go through them, and then all of a sudden, within 24 hours, you're at the Children's Hospital.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
And what did we learn? What was it?
So he has a condition called biliary atresia, and it's 1 in 20,000 kind of things, but the number one cause of pediatric liver transplantation.
And so what did this mean? The prognosis was what?
Well, at 2 months, he had a surgery to try to buy him some time, which lasted 10 years.
Oh, thank God.
And then when he was 10, he was put onto the transplant list.
So let me get this straight. You have a baby. 2 months, you find out this devastating disease. Yeah. There is an intervention to extend life, hoping to get to this point where...
buy him some time, because really they want them to get a little bigger so they have the opportunity to do the surgery when they're stronger, and it's technically easier to do it. So he spent some time in and out of the hospital during those 10 years. Cholangitis is one of the main problems with it. He had a pretty normal life up until he was 10. And then he started to fail.
And then for you as a mother and a working mother to boot, I mean, from what I understand, during these times when he was in and out of the hospital, he was very sick at home, you still had to go to work.
Yeah, I had the health coverage. So it was important for me to maintain work. And he had to go onto the transplant list. So during that time, I had to still work. And I was so lucky I had friends and family that came and stayed with him and took care of him.
Good for you.
So I could work and then take some time afterwards to kind of be with him.
But what you shared with me, we talked a little bit before the show, and what you shared with me is that time, I can't even imagine as a mother what you went through, leaving, especially when it got to those critical times where you had to leave and go to work and not knowing what was going to be happening to your son at home, and the stress and the anxiety must have been through the roof.
So I would say that was the worst time of my life.
I'm sure it
where
was.
As a mom, you see your child dying in front of you.
That's awful.
You just want to kind of stay in bed and do nothing, but I had to be present for him and my daughter, who was 3.5 at the time.
Oh, that's right. You had a 3.5-year-old.
Yeah, and so
you had this really led you to cope.
Well, I really wasn't using anything, not medication, not cannabis, till a friend of mine introduced me to cannabis and said, you need to go and smoke a joint and get yourself, to a place where you can calm down.
And she felt like this was the right answer because what would it do for you? What did she say?
Well, from her own experience, it was really relaxing. And so I took her advice, went in the bathtub, smoked the joint, and I realized I could relax and yet the next morning be fully functional and awake and present for my children.
Unlike in these situations where doctors will give you basically anything,
they
right?
would have given me anything.
But those anythings often knock you out. They make you sluggish.
Right.
They affect your mental capacity and alertness. All of those things were you couldn't layer that on top of everything else you were dealing with. You were working.
Right.
So this became the thing for you daily, I think. Was it daily?
Yeah, I mean, he was on that wait list for 3 months, and that's what got me through that.
Oh my goodness.
So once he had his transplant, which he's doing great.
Good.
He's almost 17.
Fantastic.
In high school.
Typical 17-year-old almost.
Typical 17-year-old boy. Yes. He's doing great now.
Good.
But, during that time, cannabis really helped me. And now I, just use cannabis for recreational purposes. I don't need it for that medical need.
But what it taught you changed so much in the way you thought about it as a medicine that it changed your career.
It really did. Had I not had that experience, I would have never understood the medicinal value of cannabis. And so I was approached 2 years after my son had his transplant by the founders of Next Frontier Biosciences. And they were interested in starting a cannabis company that was more like a biotech company where we created products that were really discreet, safe, consistent in kind of the way you would take a medicine. And so we developed a line of products called Vera Wellness, which contain THC, and we're just launching a CBD-only line called Vera Health.
So this is really fascinating to me because there's so many women that are in this industry, it seems, at least in these early stages, And
it's great. Lots of entrepreneurial women have gotten into this that are excited about cannabis, that really believe in how much this plant can help people.
And do you think if you hadn't had this experience with your son and really medicated yourself and saw those benefits, I mean, you weren't in pain physically, you know, your heart hurt and you were filled with anxiety, but that was alleviated because of this plant-based product. If you hadn't had that experience, do you think you would have ever migrated over into the industry?
I don't think I ever would have. And I think part of it is, you know, when you say you weren't really feeling pain, but we all know there's physical pain and there's emotional pain.
No doubt.
And so this was a very emotionally traumatic time for us.
Sure.
And so I believed in what we could do with this plant at that point. And yeah, I would have been in biotech still had it not been for that experience.
And what have you learned in the years now? How many years have you been doing?
Full-time, 3 years.
About 3 years. And what have you learned that you didn't know going in? As a PhD, as a toxicologist, somebody who'd been in the traditional side of medicine for 20 years, what has either surprised you the most or what have you learned the most about?
I would say, Shelley, the most unbelievable thing I didn't know before was that we have an endogenous cannabinoid system that regulates balance in our bodies. That homeostasis that helps us stay well is regulated by a system that's how cannabis acts on that endogenous system. And so from a scientist standpoint, and I've talked to many other PhD and master level scientists, none of us learned about this in graduate school or my friends that were in medical school.
You mean the system itself?
No one knows about it. So anybody that's been out of school for more than 5 years knows nothing about this system.
This is crazy to me. It's like, we had a doctor on recently who was talking a good bit about nutrition and nutrition-based science and nutrition-based health, you know, plant medicine. And he said the same thing about diets, that that doctors don't learn about how nutrition and diet really matters in terms of health. They don't learn it in school.
They don't. And it's like the old saying, you are what you eat. You know, that's about all we got from that, but they didn't realize the true benefits of nutrition. And it's unfortunate because these are the people practicing medicine and doing the research and not aware of these important scientific breakthroughs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of education with cannabis that really needs to happen.
Well, it's fascinating to me. I have to tell you, Dot, to know that, and I guess I always knew most standard physicians, Western trained medicine guys and gals, don't learn a lot about nutrition and how it affects the body, although I think that's changing with functional medicine, alternative medicine. But to hear that there's a system within the body that was never taught, that is shocking to me.
That was never taught and is responsible for so many functions. Memory, temperature, mobility, anxiety, happiness, all these things that we assume are parts of our everyday life, we didn't learn about.
It's so surprising to me. And you as a PhD learned about it after you transitioned over into the industry.
I feel like I got a second PhD since I've been in the industry.
And if somebody wanted to hear, just so we know, wanted to hear more about Vera Wellness, where would they find the information?
So they could go to our website. It's verawellness.com.
Okay, and you've teed us up because we're going to have a doctor that's going to come on and he is going to explain to us the cannabinoid system and how it works in the body. So I'm glad for that tee up. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And I hope you'll come back because we've run out of time already, unfortunately. And we're going to we've shown a few pictures of your son. I hope that's okay with him. And I wish him well. Continued health to him and continued good luck with you in your career.
Thanks so much.
Come back and see us.
We'll do.
The Alternative Blend is made possible through the generous underwriting support of the Green Solution.